So, returning once again to the philosophy of pure potentialism, I'd like to take some time to discuss a core principle in the philosophy, which is employed through a deliberate methodical technique, a fundamental proficiency used by spiritual warriors who strive to free their minds from mental slavery. This is a skill known as productive destruction. And as many of you have already guessed, this is a process that will seek to target your binding attachments and work to sever them permanently. A prospect that, for most of you, will be one of the most terrifying endeavors in your entire lifetime. So it's a process that is not at all for the weak-minded or the faint of heart. It is a world-shattering undertaking, one that will take a calm mind, a strong will, and a steel pair of balls. The intention here is to destroy the mind's mental dependency on empty, unsubstantial phenomena, and begin to build up a strong foundation of independence and non-reliance on illusion. And some of you may say, "Oh no, Sage, must we be so destructive?" Please, Sage, I have a special exception. My particular delusion warrants a distinct examination. It would be close-minded of you not to give the specific piece of illusion I'm valuing the proper consideration. Of course, I know that you suck on a very special teat. I can understand your reservations. And you're right. Destructive activity is usually always considered a delusional endeavor. To gain pleasure or gratification from causing tragedy, or to behave destructively out of anger or out of some other negative emotion, would definitely be an example of evil conduct. The only exception to this usually always prudent discernment is when it comes to tearing down toxic falsehoods. In these particular cases, deconstructive efforts would then be classified as productive destruction. Yes, productive destruction, as opposed to just calling it nihilism, which at this point ideologically may be beyond any kind of constructive restoration. Originally, I did set out to try to ameliorate the philosophy of nihilism in order to illustrate certain implications derived from its deeper meanings, but over time have slowly come to realize that this task is mostly a fool's errand. Previously, I found some benefit in employing the concept as a supportive instructional tool, but now, as I continue to diligently craft the philosophy of pure potentialism, I realize that I really don't need nihilism, and the creation of a new title and a new description for the technique is in order. The great advantage in creating a new classification for the technique is that now we can discard the concept of nihilism and finally be free from all its unnecessary over-encumbering baggage. We don't want the many various perceptions of nihilism to become a burden and interfere with our quest for freedom and enlightenment. Unfortunately, too many individuals have too many negative associations tied up with the concept of nihilism, whining about it constantly, and in philosophy, use it as the ultimate scapegoat, and just can't seem to get past the conditioning in their minds that automatically compels them to condemn and demonize it as the most evil ideology to ever exist. So, due to these mental snags, there's been some discussions about the possibility of an alternative classification. Hence, productive destruction was chosen to propound. Contrary to counterproductive destruction, which are the selfish actions of delusion and addiction, productive destruction is a practice of clarity and mindfulness, the selfless efforts of a pure, lucid mind, who makes consistent advancements towards clearing out an open space, which will allow the necessary room for the truth to find its ground. That's right. The truth. The fundamental truth. This is the only thing I am concerned with and nothing else. The fundamental truth. Now this is where the "yeah, but what abouts" come in. Yeah, but what about this? And yeah, but what about that? Again, I'm only interested in the fundamental truth and nothing else. That's the whole reason why I don't need to hear any of your special exceptions. What part of there are no special exceptions don't you understand? An enlightened mind has absolutely no use for philosophical debate or ideological dialogue, something that raging intellectuals can't seem to wrap their high IQs around. Have you ever noticed this? Whenever you are engaging in any kind of philosophical discourse with one who is profoundly deluded, you will notice that all the delusional one can do is point towards illusion. That's all they can do. And if you refute the specific, then they will just point towards something else, an illusion, desperately imploring you to give it more attention. And this will repeat endlessly, over and over and on and on. A tad bit of nonsense that I'd like to strip right down to the bare bones, then crack those bones down into a fine powdered dust with a sharp-bladed whip. Sorry, but I find absolutely no grounds to justify any examination or consideration of your many views and ideas. Nothing about your views and ideas would mandate that. So don't expect me to be reverent or humble towards them. I am humble when it is warranted, but humbleness doesn't equate to being respectful to people's delusions. No, I don't respect points of view. No, I don't have to be open-minded to your ideas. Open-minded to what? Lies and deception? That's what I should remain open-minded about. Keep an open mind to your specific brand of misapprehension and duplicity. No thanks. I don't have time to entertain delusions. And it doesn't matter what type of wrapping paper you cover the delusion with, it's still a delusion. I only respect the fundamental truth. And the fundamental truth is not found by sifting through the sandbox of mankind's many views and ideas. In fact, it's these types of views and ideas that are the main proposed target of productive destruction. Productive destruction is an endeavor that is definitely worthy of encouragement. It is effort that should be commended, as it is conducive towards enlightenment. We don't want to become so overly circumspect that we allow ourselves to lose clarity and then fall into a delusion. No. We must go about our duty with unbending focus, destroying all falsehoods aggressively and with a vigorous sense of urgency. Now, some of your ears just perked up because you heard the phrase destroying falsehoods, and now some of you are chomping at the bit, licking your chops and foaming at the mouth, so ready, able, willing, and eager to rush out into the world and destroy something you condemn and hate that you think in your mind is outside of yourself. And if only this were ever the case, then I'd really be so very happy for you. But unfortunately for you, it isn't the case, not even in the slightest bit. So accordingly, I'm wholly unimpressed with your zeal and passion. I'm not in the least bit inspired by your fanatical devotion to the cause. Sorry, but this existence isn't about your ego's desire to live out one of its heroic white knight fantasies. The quest to slay the dragon and save the princess is null and void. Forget about a triumphant victory and the reception of great treasure and rewards. Those are all the delusions of a useless sleeping weasel coward who can't face up to the truth. And when it comes to the application of productive destruction, it isn't even accurate to call it destroying falsehoods anyway, as nothing is ever really destroyed in reality. This is why the wise do not venture out and seek to destroy aspects of the external world. Wisdom doesn't do that. Not to say that to actually physically destroy an object is always out of the question. It isn't. Sometimes there will be cases where a corrupted manifestation will indeed need to be destroyed, but these types of measures should always be a last course of action, and should only be a matter presided over by the truly wise and high-minded. And you can call that elitism if that makes you feel better, but henceforth it will remain the case, and justly so nevertheless. What? You thought you'd have some say in the matter? You think the wise counsel of the clear, calm minds has some kind of interest or obligation to consult with the mob of arrogant, self-absorbed, heedless, myopic egos? No. This is a matter requiring maturity and wisdom. This is a matter requiring discipline and mindfulness and efficiency. With great power comes great responsibility, and great responsibility will no longer be placed into the weak, inexperienced hands of the inept and unqualified. Your extreme selfishness doesn't entitle you to a say, or lend you any eligibility. This is no more of an elitist exercise than a parent making a decision for a 3-year-old child. Sorry if you don't like it, but it's just the way it's gonna be from now on. If you feel disgruntled with these standards, then please, by all means, grow up, discipline yourself, and take on some responsibility. But just so you know, in order to acquire the necessary maturation and inner development needed to take this course of effort, you must first attend to the conditions of your own mind. This is a matter that will not be accomplished through wasting time with useless efforts of rushing out into the outside world to destroy physical configurations. As previously stated, you are not even really destroying anything anyway. You might change the surface of an illusion at best, but ultimately, nothing has gone anywhere. Or more aptly stated, nothing remains nowhere. You can't destroy something that doesn't even exist in the first place. And that's not a justification for you to be destructive, by the way. If you indulge in destruction for selfish interest, then you are deluded and you fail the objective, period. Thinking in your head that nothing matters because you think you know intellectually that everything is an illusion isn't any kind of pass. And if you could put aside all that intellectualism, then you might appreciate why. Yeah, you and your precious thoughts, which become your sacred attachments, which you then classify as your beliefs and values, and defend thereafter with blind, passionate obstinance. You are way too smug and secure in your thoughts. You rely on them too heavily and take refuge in them constantly, but you won't be advancing your mind towards freedom and enlightenment one bit until you have fully mastered them. And that's something you're gonna need to come to terms with. You think thoughts create utility, but they don't. Thoughts create limits, boundaries, and obstacles. Thoughts create distractions, diversions, and overcomplications. Thoughts transform you from a good potential student into a judgmental, bigoted, pig-headed jackass. Yeah. The thinking mind and all its profound intellectualism. This is the area that is the main target for the productive destruction, a clarification that needs some amplification. For many aspiring students, a lot of unfortunate issues have cropped up because rampant chaos and misconduct have broke out in the training grounds. An unfortunate circumstance that is interfering with their learning and development. Hence, due to these disruptions, a wise sage or a spiritual yogi can no longer perform their duties effectively, and as such, the prevailing conditions are ruled over by an overall state of disorder, and will remain so until the problem in this unfortunate situation has been properly revised. And one of the few ways a mentor or guide can reform these corrupted students appropriately is by completely emptying out their minds. And it's important to highlight this distinction. The aim is to remove the poison from the mind and then leave the mind empty. Not remove the poison from the mind and replace that poison with a different kind of poison. Regrettably, these poisons have become highly comforting to the prospective students and are held onto very tightly, as they are ingrained into their minds subconsciously. Thus, the poisons will not be easily overcome. Students have grown very familiar and secure with these poisons. So even though the poisons are extremely detrimental to the student's overall well-being, the student will automatically resist any efforts to remedy it and will even fight to defend it. So it will be a difficult process to undertake, to be sure. Ultimately, these students are going to have to deal with being separated from a soothing delusion and be left to face a cold, stark reality without any emotional support. Like a little suckling infant whose time has come to be weaned off the teat. Whoa. Understandably, a little fledgling doesn't want to give up on his breast milk. But, of course, Father knows best. So now the time has come for you to grow up and stand on your own 2 feet. And no, you cannot suck your thumb or use a pacifier in the interim. There will be no replacement nipple or substitute breast milk, so don't anticipate transition to a new surrogate. The teat will be removed, and you are expected to go through your period of withdrawal, then learn how to adjust to existence without any teat. This is the only way to annihilate these bad behaviors. Most of the ongoing bad behaviors that are currently interfering with students from making advancements towards inner development stem from ill seeds that have been previously planted deep in their minds. These are malevolent seeds that are infecting the student's spirit, filling them up with insidious thoughts and beliefs, tainting their vulnerable, impressionable minds with mental sicknesses that enable violence, greed, hate, fear, and envy. Pervasive, malicious seeds that, if not sought out and eradicated with great haste, will inevitably spread further and further, till eventually they will completely contaminate the student's entire mind. In most cases, the student isn't even aware of this, and will just assume they implanted dark psychology to be an integral part of his inner being. Where did these bad seeds come from? The origins are numerous. Bad fathers or lack thereof, abusive step-parents or guardians, false teachers, the politics or religions of psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, megalomaniacs, cultists, zealots, and dictators. The source of bad seeds is many, but the remedy for this oppressive affliction is solitary and pure. The evil seeds are found in the mind. Hence, productive destruction is process that is strictly targeting aspects in the field of the mind, and not any aspect of external physicality. This is perhaps where the misconceptions about nihilism went awry, but where the procedure of productive destruction will realign and rectify. The bad behaviors are a mere symptom of a sinister malignancy that has taken up root deep within the mind. And it's this kind of evil seed that needs to be the target of attack, deconstruction, and utter annihilation. The issue is in the mind. Hence, productive destruction isn't an act of homicide. Productive destruction is an act of menticide. As in, a systematic effort to destroy any abstractions that are serving as the binding traps that keep your mind bogged down in mental slavery.